Evan Carter, you had a chance to chat with him today. He is literally, as you know, Jeff, we get as many questions about Evan Carter as we do of almost anyone else as he tries to come back from, what could be, what certainly was a serious enough injury, but we just hope that it's not one that lingers in the career of such a young guy with so much upside. So how's he feeling?
Well, he feels good, and that's the key takeaway here. He feels good. He was asked, all right, what specifically was the injury? And this is where you get a little, I don't know, uneasy. He said, well, that's personal. I'm keeping it personal. I'm not going to give you guys the diagnosis of what it was. It's between me and the doctor and the Rangers and all this stuff. And all right, so it's like, gosh, this sounds like it's bad. But then you talk to him a little bit more, and he said once they isolated the issue, Dr. Drew Dossett, the former Rangers back specialist, Cowboys back specialist, professional bull riders. I think he still does with the Stars in the NFL. He did my back 11 years ago today. In fact, 11 years ago
Wow.
today. He identified a problem. They had the ablation done, which is basically cauterizing a nerve. There's no pain, he said. He hasn't had any flare-ups during the off season. He's found a routine that he does before workout. He does it after workout, and it hasn't failed him yet. And you saw that swing there. He's back to swinging the bat. That's his swing. Where he kind of opens up and looks like he's running out of the box. That's Evan Carter's swing, and he couldn't do it last year because basically beginning, he said, in about mid-April, his back wouldn't allow him to do a lot of things. He tried to grit through it as all young guys do. Anyway, we kept talking about it. It sounds like something he can grow out of. That if everything keeps going the way it has, and what history Dr. Dossett has with it, it eventually goes away. So that's good. It's just, it feels like you're kind of walking on eggshells with this guy. But Bruce Bochy said they're going to monitor him. But as far as he's concerned, Evan Carter is ready to go out and play. If Evan says he can go, then the Rangers are going to let him go. Another interesting part of the discussion was, he's competing basically with Leody Taveras for the job in center field. And those two were like big workout buddies this offseason. They both stayed in the Metroplex for much of it and worked out at Globe Life Field. They played catch every day. I guess they came out here a little early and were throwing each other soft toss and stuff like that. I don't know. They must have spent 5-10 minutes together just watching guys hitting and talking after every round and all this stuff. And you talk to both of them and they think the other guy is just the best guy in the world, and they're not far off. Leody's tremendous, and Evan, of course, is a man of deep faith, but super polite, and doesn't cuss much and says shucks all the time and stuff like that. It's unusual, but it's those two. We talked to Evan about hitting left-handers, which is there's not a huge sample size, but it hasn't been great. But he's confident he can do it. So, it may come down to the Rangers just going with one of them, probably Evan, I would think, and letting him figure it out. And if it becomes too big of an issue, then maybe Leody would get a crack against some left-handers. But I think another possibility would be Wyatt Langford sliding over to center field. The Rangers don't want to do that, and they want to keep him in one spot where he doesn't have to worry about his defense much and let him just go up to the plate and kill the ball. But right now, somebody has to figure it out in center field. And Leody, still young guy. Leody's still young. I think he's only 26. He got rushed to the major leagues, and then bam, the lockout happened, and at a real critical time for him. If he had an off season where he would have been able to work with the Rangers, or at least get a lot of feedback from them, because that was when Donnie Ecker was a new coach and Tim Hires were new, it would have been huge. They didn't get their hands on him until 3 weeks before the season with that shortened spring training, and they sent him to the minors to keep working on it and all of that stuff. So it's frustrating because you look at Leote and you're like, my God, this guy looks like a stud, and he is. He's an amazing athlete. It just hasn't clicked yet, and he may be running out of time.
Well, I'll say this, shucks. We got to be careful with our profanity-laden questions around Evan Carter, don't we? We got to tamp it down a little bit for Evan Carter. Yeah, so it's obviously I suppose one of the bigger battles, one of the few battles really of spring training is that quote unquote battle in center field, and I always find it unique, interesting, and really in many ways heartwarming when the two guys who are battling are such good friends. It's a unique dynamic.
Well, it makes not getting the job a lot easier, and if you're pulling for the other guy and want the best for him and it comes at your expense, well, what are you going to do? And then you're going to stay ready. And, if something happens, shoot, guys get hurt. Evan Carter is a perfect example of that. They can play all three outfield spots. So there's going to be at bats for him. And, you could see maybe a late game substitution if they're not comfortable with Wyatt Langford completely in left field. Evan could switch to left and Leote could come into center or vice versa. There are possibilities and ways that they're both going to play for this team. But yeah, I mean, not two guys can't play center field. You only get one of them. This isn't slow pitch softball. So we'll see what happens as everything takes its course. But I think if Evan is healthy, Evan's going to be the guy.
Yeah, okay. So let's switch topics just a little bit here and talk. We've already obviously mentioned at the top of the show, if you missed it, the Rangers have signed Luke Jackson to a major league contract, and they've put Josh Boers on the 60-day disabled list to make room for Luke on the 40-man roster. Luke, a part of the Rangers back in 15 and 16. And so then the other person, former Ranger, Jeff, that they snatched up over the weekend is Joe Barlow. Now, he's on a minor league deal, but it's almost as if when we look at the progression of the guys they've added to that bullpen, Jesse Chavez, all these guys, like they're throwing numbers at that thing for sure.
Well, right. No doubt about it. The more the merrier. Joe didn't pitch in the major leagues last year. He was injured at one point and then ultimately was released. But I tell you what, everybody loves Joe Barlow. There are a lot of happy people, former teammates talking to Joe Barlow yesterday. He lives in this area now. He married the daughter of former Diamondbacks great Luis Gonzalez. And so he's, has a pretty good guy to lean on when times are tough. And times have been tough for him, injuries and had just, kind of a lack of performance. I don't know that he makes the major league team, but I think he's going to be damn happy to go to AAA. And maybe he pitches and gets another opportunity somewhere. But yeah, it's if you sign enough guys, you're bound to get one of them right. And JT Chargois, who signed on the first day, guy with a ton of big league experience with the Mariners, good numbers if you go look at him. Jesse Chavez, of course, who he's 41 now, but you look at his year last year, it doesn't matter how old he is. It was a great year. And he threw live today and looked good. So there's going to be some competition down there. And I know that a lot of people, including myself, think that, they need a couple multi-inning guys to help with the shortfall of innings. But maybe there's just one. And maybe on those days they have to piece something together with guys who can throw multiple innings and, maybe 4 outs from one guy and 5 outs from another. And I would imagine Jackson could do that. Mark Church could be a guy that does that. Sean Armstrong, Hobie Milner, even Jacob Webb. They've pitched multiple innings before. So I don't know how it's going to shake out. Honestly, you have these ideas, but I think if they're looking for options to close out games, which Jackson, who would be the 6th addition to the bullpen this offseason, again, a lot of possibilities to go with there. And maybe, who knows, maybe he ends up getting 10 saves and another guy gets 8, another guy gets 7, and all of a sudden the Rangers have a 30-save reliever, just 3 of them doing it. So we'll see how that one's another storyline. I mean, Centerfield's really the only position that's not settled. It even sounds like the bench is going to be settled with whoever doesn't win center field, the backup catcher, Josh Smith and Ezekiel Duran. But again, guys get hurt, and you never know when you're going to need somebody. And so we'll see how it plays out. That's about all we can do. That's what we're going to say a lot until the first wave of roster cuts, and then the second, and then the day they leave here, they'll have an idea of what the roster is going to look like.
Yep.
We all silly like the mayor.